The Snake Prince. Once upon a time, there was an old woman who lived by herself in a city in India. She was very poor. One day, she went down to the river as usual to wash, taking with her a small brass pot, which she used to carry water back to her hut. But when she lifted the lid off to fill it, there was a glittering, deadly snake inside. She thought,
I will take this snake home with me and let it kill me there, for I am so poor and alone, and I long for death.
When she reached her hut, she tipped the pot on the floor. But to her surprise, instead of the snake, a magnificent necklace fell out. She picked it up and hurried to the palace to offer it to the king. When the king saw the necklace, he bought it from the old woman at once to give it to his queen, whose days were filled with sadness because she had no children. The queen was delighted with the beautiful necklace and locked it away in her jewel chest. Sometime later, she wanted to look at it again. But when she opened the door, she found to her amazement that the necklace had disappeared, and in its place was a baby boy who sat on a silk cushion, smiling and beaming happily at her. Oh, how sweet! I've always longed for a baby. This child is the loveliest jewel more than any necklace that's ever been made. The years went by, and the boy grew into a young man, whose beauty and wisdom were praised by all. His parents started looking for a bride for their son, and eventually it was arranged that he should marry a beautiful princess from the neighboring state. Now, the old woman who had sold the necklace to the king had been given the position of a nurse to the young prince. She loved the boy dearly, and in her foolish pride, she could not help boasting a little to the other servants that there had been magic in his birth. This rumor spread, and it reached to the ears of the prince's bride. Filled with curiosity, she resolved to find out the secret as soon as she became his wife. The prince spoke tenderly to his bride, but she did not answer him. She was silent for a long time while the prince pleaded with her to speak. At last she said, "Tell me the story of your birth, my prince." The prince was filled with dismay at her request.
If I tell you, you will be sorry that you ever asked this question.
For many months, their lives continued this way, each one growing sadder and paler because of the secret that lay between them. At last, the prince could bear it no longer and said to his bride,
At midnight tonight, I promise to tell you my secret, but you will regret it all your life.
The princess was so happy to hear this that she paid no heed to his warning. That night, the prince ordered his horses to be saddled, and little before midnight, he rode with his princess down the river. By its bank, he stopped and asked in his infinitely sad voice,
Do you still wish me to tell you my secret?
Yes!
Then I will tell you. I am the son of a king of a far country, but by an evil spell I was turned into a snake.
No sooner had he spoken the last word than he sank to the ground and disappeared. The princess heard a rustle and saw in the moonlight a snake gliding into the river. She called to her love to return and searched everywhere for him, but the night held its secret, and her prince did not return. When the king and the queen found her in the morning, she was weeping, and her long hair was flowing loose. Her feet were cut and bleeding from the stones that she had stumbled on in the night. All she asked was that they build a temple of black stones on the riverbank, where she would live alone and moan for her prince. Years passed, and still the princess waited for her husband to return. She never left the temple, and the guards who watched her never allowed anyone to come inside. Then one morning, when she awoke, she found a stain of fresh mud on the pillow beside her. She asked the guards if anyone had entered the room while she was asleep, but they had seen no one. The third night, the princess determined to stay awake and watch. So she cut her finger with a knife so that the pain would keep her from sleeping. At midnight, she saw a snake come gliding along the floor with mud from the river still clinging on to its skin. It came up to her bed, raised its head, and then sank down on the pillow beside her.
Who are you, and what do you want?
I am your prince, your husband, and I have come to see you again. The princess began to weep, and as he watched her, the snake went down. At last. Didn't I tell you that you would repent your curiosity all your life? Oh, yes, I have repented it all these years, and I have been alone, Prince. Is there nothing I can do to bring you back again? Yes, there is one thing. If you are brave enough to do it, you must put a bowl of milk and honey in each of the corner of this room. All the snakes of the rivers will come and drink the milks, and the one that leads the way will be the queen of the snakes. You must stand in front of her and say, "Oh, queen of snakes, queen of snakes, give me back my husband." But if you are frightened and do not stop her, she will keep me in her power forever, and you will never see me again. With these words, the snake glided away and disappeared into the river. The following night, the princess took 4 bowls of milk and put one in each corner of the room. She stood in the doorway, waiting. At midnight, there was a great hissing and rustling from the river, and presently the ground was covered with the writhing forms of snakes, their eyes glittering and their forked tongues quivering, and reached forward as they moved towards the princess. They were led by the huge, hideous creature who was the queen of the snakes. The guards were so frightened that they ran away and left the princess alone, standing in the doorway. She was deadly white, but determined that she would not run away. When the leading snake came within reach of her, she cried, "Oh, queen of snakes, give me back my husband, please!" But the queen of snakes moved forward until her head was almost touching, and her small, evil eyes seemed to flash fire. Still, the princess stood in the doorway, and again she cried, "Oh, queen of snakes, give me my husband, please!" Then the snake fell back and hissed, "Tomorrow you shall have him." When she heard these words, the princess sank fainting into her bed. The next morning, the princess took off her mourning dress and put on beautiful clothes again. She filled the temple with flowers, and when night came, she lit the garden with lanterns and the temple with candles. At midnight, the prince came to her from out of the river. She ran to meet him, and they embraced with greater joy and love than they had ever felt before. The old king and queen wept with joy too, and commanded that feasting and rejoicing begin. The old woman, who had been the prince's nurse, was far too old to do anything for the children, but loved them. And the prince and the princess ruled the land for many years with love and wisdom in their hearts. The end.
If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe our channel and press the bell icon to get future updates. And don't forget to comment.